Tonight we have Jeremy Chilton, and Jeremy's got a background in the land business, but has done very well with cold calling and put together a service. And Jeremy, can you just give us a little bit more insight on your background and the cold calling?
Yeah, I've been doing land investing for, I don't know, maybe 7 years now. I'm a land investor, I'd say first and foremost. So that's my focus. And we used to do a lot of mailing, seeing a lot of blind offers and range offers and all sorts of, tried everything. And we've had lots of success, different levels of success, depending on what we're targeting and that sort of thing. We ran into a tough spot where we weren't really getting the responses that we were used to getting, looking to try something new. We went into cold calling. And that has worked really well for us. And for me, I like the kind of the instant response that you can get when you send out several thousand letters. You got to prep them and send them to be printed, and then they mail them, and you're maybe 4 to 6 weeks before you start hearing back from anybody. Cold calling, we can start calling them today and have responses today. So I really like the kind of instant response that we get if the market's working or not, right? So you can shift gears. So anyway, we started cold calling for ourselves and had some other land investors that were interested in what we were doing and heard what we were doing. So we started doing some cold calling for some other land investors that grown from there. I said, hey, let me formalize this and we'll do something with this. That's the direction we're going in. And like I said, we focus strictly on vacant land. We don't do any sort of house flipping or anything like that. I know some services call for houses, but we just focus on vacant land. So that's our specialty. So that's where we are today.
Are you still doing mailings as well?
So at the very moment, I've stopped just because we've had such good success with the cold calling for a while now. And my thought is what I'm doing is keeping track of people we can't reach. And I want to go back and then send mailings to them to the people who just can't get on the phone. I think it has its place. Maybe even prepaid for a whole bunch of mailings, but so I'd like to use those credits, and I think we will use them. But for right now, we're having some good success with the cold calling. So for right now, it's paused.
Yeah, so you could take your list, cold call it first, as opposed to send mail first, but cold call first, and the ones that you don't reach, then go ahead and mail, and then cut down on your mail cost.
Exactly. We started cold calling. We used to do some texting for a little bit, and we pulled back on that because there's been a lot of issues around texting. So we pulled back on that and have been cold calling, and that's gone really well for us. We're looking to get back into potentially texting. So doing like a cold calling first, maybe texting second, and then mailing third, because it's your most expensive way to reach somebody.
I think the mail rates are going up again. Derek probably knows here in a week.
It is.
Yeah, it just doesn't stop going up. And we had a batch of mail, several thousand pieces of mail that never got delivered. We had them printed and we had them shipped out, and they just never got delivered. And so we had to eat several $1,000s in postage for mail that never got delivered. The company offered to reprint it for us, which was very nice. They had delivered to the mail office, but the mail office never got them delivered. So that was the last straw for us. And we decided, you know what, let's try something different.
Yeah, so maybe just go into your service, how it works, how people get started with you, just from.
Sure.
Come on.
So we do a couple different ways. Most people will provide a list to us of properties that they're interested in. So they already have something, they've pulled out a data tree or maybe somewhere else, and either they've skip traced it or we'll skip trace it for them. We skip trace at costs right now for people. What that does is just brings back their telephone numbers, their contact information, so we can reach out to them. Once we get that, we'll load it into our system, and we'll assign a full-time caller to your campaign, and they basically call 8 hours a day, every day, trying to reach these people. And it calls multiple numbers at a time, so we can get through, I'd say in a month, we can get through 10 to 12,000 leads. And that sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but you'll get a lot of tire kickers, a lot of people who are interested, but maybe not interested at the price you're willing to pay. You have other people who say they're interested, aren't really interested, and you have people who are actually interested, very interested. So we go through, we contact them, we run through a series of questions, trying to identify what their motivation is, how motivated are they, what's their asking price, does it have road access, does it have utilities, is there a house, is there some structure on the property? And then we can tweak that on a per campaign basis. So if you have particular questions you want to ask, we can of course tweak that. And again, if our kind of opening script, we have a canned script that we use, but we can certainly use whatever script you have, or if you want to make any tweaks to it. And we'll collect all that information. And then if you have a CRM, we will put it directly into your CRM. If you have a web interface or something, then we can just put it right into your CRM. We can email it to you. We can put it into the Google spreadsheet so you can see them as they come in. Some of the guys we work with, we just put them into a Google spreadsheet and they use Zapier or whatever, and they just pull it right out of there into their CRM. But yeah, once it goes in there, you'll get it. So we do that pretty much real time, or it is real time. So you'll see the leads as they come in, and then you can follow up with them, reach out to them. You're able to, now you'll see in your system, you can pull it up, take a closer look at it, get your offer price together. Where in the past, if you're doing mailings, a lot of times, depending on how you're doing it, you're pricing it before you send it out. Again, depending on how you're doing that. But now you're able to pull it up, really take a look at it, comp it. And when you reach out to them, you have your offer price, your offer range. You can offer them whatever, 40% of market, 50% of market, 60% of market, and work your way up from there. And we do ask for email addresses and other stuff. A lot of people like to communicate via email address or even texting. And then also, obviously, by phone, because we did reach them by phone. And we are working on, right now, we use a service in-house where we will comp properties to tie into a system where we put in the property information. It just brings back kind of the market value, a rough market value. And we're looking to open that up to our customers. So whenever we send off a lead to somebody, it also includes the property, the price of the property, a comp. So you know, when you're looking at it, at least you have an idea of what this property is probably, what the market value is when you start comping it yourself. It's a rough one, but it gives them an idea.
Yeah, so when you guys have the initial contact with them, and after the initial contact, if it was and I don't know if you categorize it as a cold lead, a warm lead, or a hot lead, at that point, would the follow-up calls come back to us?
Yeah, so it would then go over to you, and that's where you would follow up with them from there. They're expecting, the way we leave it is, we say, okay, we have someone who's potentially interested in purchasing your property, and we're going to have them, it'll say our partner, we're going to have our partner reach out to you within the next 24, 48 hours with an offer. So they're expecting your call. They're expecting to hear from you within 1 to 2 days with an offer, and then you can go from there. So
yeah, would that be, so we could provide you with a list, but if someone had a market, do you pull list also?
Yeah, so we can also pull lists if you don't already have a list, if you so particular county or state or certain acreage, whatever the metrics are, whatever the different metrics are, we can pull that list and skip trace it and then call it for you.
Yeah, so would it be a menu of services? And then could we select that we don't want you to pull the list, we want to use ours? How's that?
Correct. Our focus is the cold calling, but absolutely we can pull lists for you, property lists for you. We can skip trace it. You know, if you're just like, hey, I want a cold call and I want to cold call everybody in Colorado, whatever that is, we can pull that, we can skip trace it, we can get it all ready for you, load it into the system and start calling and start sending you those leads. If you come to us with the list already, we can work with that. If you have a list that hasn't been skip traced, we can still use your list and skip trace it. So yeah, we're flexible. We can do whatever. We can start anywhere there.
We pulled a list from PropStream. We could go ahead and skip trace it through PropStream or another service, or we could build a list through PropStream and send that list to you, and then you could skip trace it.
Correct. The only caveat there is if you are skip tracing it yourself, I just would want to confirm that you are checking it for doing what they call a litigator scrub. So what we do is we remove anybody that's a litigator, anyone who might have been involved in suing somebody in the past. We're not trying to call them up and talk to somebody that likes to sue people. We try to avoid situations like that.
Or we could send you the list, and could you scrub it through the litigator?
I haven't found a great way to do that yet. I am looking for a way to do that. Most of the services that provide that litigator scrub do it as part of their skip tracing process.
Right.
And I have found some other services that will do a litigator scrub, but typically we're importing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers, and they charge so much per number. So doesn't make sense financially to do it that way.
So sometimes I'll pull a list through PropStream, but then I run it through Versium, and Versium will give us up to 6 phone numbers. And Louise probably knows better than I do, but typically the first 3 are the best ones, and you get to numbers 4, 5, and 6, it diminishes quite a bit.
Yeah, and that's what we do. We load those numbers into our system, and what we'll do is we'll start with the first number. If we make contact and they say, oh, you have the wrong number, okay, we mark that, and then we go on, we start calling the second number for that lead. Maybe we reach somebody and they say, or maybe it's a disconnected number. Again, we mark that, and then we start calling the third lead. So we just go down the line until we get somebody that says they're interested, or hey, we're not interested, leave me alone, or hey, it's sold, I no longer own it, whatever that is. We try and we just keep reaching out until we get that person. And the nice thing here, and the one thing I do like about cold calling over mailing is a lot of times the problems we'd run into, I think, in my head, we're sending mail and I'm sending them an offer for $50,000. Maybe they didn't like 50, but they would have taken 55 or 60, but they don't necessarily always reach out to you to tell you that. So if you can get them on the phone or you can get a dialogue with them, you can find out that, hey, they want 55, they want 60, and you might be willing to go that high. And what's also too, we make multiple contacts, right? So if we don't reach them on the first time, the first pass, we come back around again. We make a second pass. We're reaching out, trying, until we get somebody on the phone and we get an answer from them. We're going to keep reaching out to them until we get an answer. So we'll keep calling.
Yeah, and go ahead.
One other thing I do want to add is, so the way we do it is, if you're calling, wherever you're calling, what we'll do is we pull your list, or we load your list, and we'll see the primary area codes that we're calling, and we purchase numbers, a pool of numbers for that area. So if you're calling a 702 area code, we have 702 numbers that we're calling from, or if it's a 252, we're calling from a 252. And what it does is it matches based on that area code. So depending on what it's calling, it'll automatically match. It'll call from that number. And then whenever we come back around and we call them again because they didn't answer the first time, it'll still use, say a 252 or a 702, whatever the matching area code is, but it'll use a different number. So they don't just keep seeing the same number, calling them over and over.
You probably get a higher answer rate. So 702, a Las Vegas number to a Las Vegas seller.
Exactly. It looks like a local number. You pick up the phone, you see it's an 800 number, you're not answering that. And even if it's an area code maybe in your state, you're like, I don't know anybody over there. You're more likely to pick up, but still, I don't know anyone in a 405 area code, so I'm not gonna pick up. We do our best to match that. We see a much higher pickup rate with that.
Is that a Mojo dialer that you use, Jeremy?
No, we first started off with this. We looked at Mojo Dialer, we looked at Call Tools, we looked at a lot of different services, and I just didn't quite have the control that I wanted over that. So we use like a custom call center software that we run on our own servers. So we're able to then go out with most of these services. They'll give you so many numbers. They'll give you just a couple of numbers, maybe 5 numbers, 10 numbers in a particular area. The way we have it set up is we can go out and purchase thousands of numbers if we want to. And we own several hundred numbers that we're calling from on a daily basis. But yeah, similar to a Mojo dialer, we can dial 10 lines at a time if we want to. We don't. I mean, we can only handle so many numbers dialing at one time, but very similar to Mojo dialer.
Thank you.
Where are the callers based?
We use these in the Philippines. And this is what's directed our path, or my path, down the cold calling route. Was I'd hired a VA to work with me and land stuff. And anyways, we're having problems with mailing, and I told him, hey, I'm gonna do some cold calling stuff. Anyways, long story short, turned out he used to run a call center in the Philippines, so it was great. It was perfect. Between the two of us, we're able to make this work and get this going. But yeah, they all work they're all out of the Philippines. We obviously screen for someone with a neutral accent, because I know it's important to people in the U.S. if they're getting called from someone with maybe a little different accent, but not as willing to answer questions. So we do look for callers with a very neutral, little to no accent. And we've had good luck. We've had very good luck with that. We really haven't had any issues with that. And one thing I did want to, I wrote down some, kind of give you an idea of what we typically, like in a month, of what we would do. These are 3 different campaigns, 3 different land investors that we are working with right now that I pulled just high, medium, and low. So again, we can call about 10 to 12,000 leads in a month, and we can do more without the sweet spot where we get a couple rotations on them, and I feel like we can get good penetration on those leads. But for instance, in the past 30 days, this gentleman we've been working with, we did just under 20,000 dials. It's 10,000, actually it's 8,000 leads, but dialed almost 20,000 times. We brought in 100 leads for him. Okay. And yeah, a lot of those will be leads that will not pan out, but it's a numbers game. You got to keep making offers. It only takes that one person to say, yeah, I'm interested, or yeah, I'll accept your offer, and you're good to go. So anyways, this gentleman, we did 100 leads for him. Another gentleman in the Northeast, again, we did 16,000 dials. We did 104 leads for him this past month. And then a gentleman in the Southwest, we did 180 leads for him this month. Now he's targeting, the trends that we see is if you go for smaller properties, cheaper properties, you get a lot more people that are interested. So you'll bring in a lot more leads. Obviously, the potential profits you're going to make is going to be a little bit lower, a lot more leads that way. If you go for this other gentleman, he goes for properties like 100 acres plus. So it's a little harder to find people. Usually people who own land like that, I think they're a little better versed in what their property is worth, or maybe it runs in the family, they've had it for a real long time. They're a little more reluctant to sell their property at a discounted rate.
Yeah, different product.
Exactly. So it just depends on where you're calling, the value of the land, the size of the land. Definitely smaller parcels we see a much better response than larger parcels. On average, I would say 3 to 6 leads a day on a new list is what our average is, I would say.
And then if someone wants to go ahead and get started with you, what is the minimum size list that you would need?
We can, like I said, we tell people 10 to 12,000 or even 8 to 12,000. We can do less, or we can do a couple thousand. We can do 2, 3, 4, or 5,000. We'll just call that list. It'll just be called maybe 4, 5, 6 times within that month, as opposed to maybe just 2 or 3 times, which is fine. I have a list that only has 5,000 leads on it. I've been calling for 4.5 months. I keep getting leads off of it. Now the leads diminish. Each pass, you get a little fewer leads, but again, it only takes one person to say yes or to accept your offer, and you have good returns on it. For me, it still makes sense. I like the area, that particular area, so I just keep working that same list. And anytime I can, we'll add more leads to that list and expand that. But I just love that area. I know there's a lot of value if we can pull some properties out of there. So we'll keep working that same 4,000 or 5,000 lead list for several months, just until we get to a point where we're just not getting anything. So you don't have to do 10,000. It can be a few thousand.
Yeah, I just work one county and I have about 3,000 leads, but they're extremely focused.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't take that long to go through them. But with a service like yours, I would see how I could easily maybe expand to another area,
Right.
or do maybe it seems like it's so easy to go ahead and get a hold of some of these people that I could expand my parameters.
Yeah, we can easily reach out to a lot of people. If you have one thing that we do also with our list internally for our land company is we pre-screen everything. We're only calling properties that we've already actually looked at on a satellite map and said, we know it has road access. We know there's nothing on the property. We know there's not major power lines going through it. We know it's not in a flood zone. We've already pre-screened these properties. So I know if someone says, yeah, I'm interested in selling my property, I already know it's going 90% chance, 95% chance it's going to be a good property.
Do you work one market or do you work multiple markets?
Excuse me. So we focus on one state at a time.
Okay.
We'll do multiple counties, but every state's different. The rules are different in every state, the requirements, and it takes time to shift gears sometimes from one state to another state. But we usually like to work one state at a time. We also will work with like realtors to list properties for us. So we have those relationships where we can reach out to them and say, hey, we've comped this property. We think it's worth this much. Can you double check this for me? Make sure that this makes sense to you before we close on the property. So when we get the property, we know, hey, right away, we know we can at least list it for X amount and expect a certain amount of return. So we like to form those relationships. And once we work that market, just don't feel like we're getting the leads out of it or the deals out of it that we should, we'll of course move on, maybe come back in a year.
Great. Before I hog all the time, would you be able to take questions?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Have you tried the SMS with your service to contact the the landowner, Jeremy?
We used to do some texting prior to getting into cold calling, and we did have some good success with it. But there's been so much regulation that's come down in the last 6 months or a year on texting that between kind of the cost of it and the expense of it and getting scared from what was going on with the regulation, we put a pause on it. But we are working to do that here in the very near future. It's like a second follow-up. I think we figured out how we're going to approach that. So we'll cold call first, and then I think we'll go to doing like texting second. We even do some cold emailing internally in-house. The problem with texting and emailing is you're talking over text, talking over email. People just stop responding to you. If you send them an offer and they don't like it, they won't even respond to you after that. It still works, don't get me wrong. It's just when you have them on the phone, it's easy to say, okay, that didn't work for you. What does work for you? So I like to do that first. I feel like getting them on the phone is the most effective, maybe a little more work, but the most effective. And then I'd like to cascade down through texting, maybe email, and then sending them a letter in the mail, since that's the most expensive way of doing it.
I have a question, Jeremy.
Sure.
Do you leave a voicemail for them if you can't?
We've experimented with that. Currently, we do not leave a voicemail. We'll basically mark it as no one answered. We won't leave a voicemail, and then we'll call back. It just works better because when they call back in, we have to then identify who they are, which property is theirs, and that sort of thing. So right now, it really works better for us to call them back. But it is something we're looking at potentially trying to refine that process of leaving a voicemail.
Yeah, I have another question. I can't really gauge how much does the service cost? If I gave you a list of 2,000 people,
Mhm.
which, because I don't mail a ton, Michael teaches us to niche down our list so we're not mailing happenstance and
Right.
crazily and wasting money. So we try to niche down our list. So if I gave you 2,000 names and you did the skip tracing, what would that cost approximately?
So typically when we're working with land investors, they're like I said, targeting kind of that 8 to 10 to 12,000 in leads. So we'll call quite a few people. But yes, I know Michael has a kind of a different, more focused approach there. And it's something that we've thought about. We currently do full-time callers, so we'll do 8 hours a day. And maybe for something like that, it might make more sense to do like a part-time caller, like 4 hours a day. Currently, right now, we charge $1,900 a month for a full-time cold caller, the dialer, kind of everything, right? We were looking to, for Michael's group, to offer a $200 discount for anybody that's in the group that's interested in using our service for the full-time service. But we could do something where we cut that in half and did 4 hours a day type thing and cut the cost in half. So I'd say right around $1,000, maybe $900 a month if you just had a couple thousand leads, unless you just really wanted to hit those leads really hard and you wanted a full-time caller.
Yeah. If you had a full-time caller, how many leads could a full-time caller handle in a month?
Yeah, so I mean, you can send us as many as you want. For a full-time caller, we can, like I said, we say 10 to 12,000 leads, but we like to be able to go through that a couple of times, right? Because you call them at 10 a.m., they don't answer, but you know what? Maybe next week they answer at 5 p.m. So we like to go through and try to hit those, maximize those leads. But they'll call in a month. Full-time caller might call 20,000, you might do 20,000 dials, 25,000 dials in a month. So we could call 25,000 leads in a.
Yeah, I think maybe a challenge, I don't know, is some of us have larger lists, some of us have smaller lists. But if there was 10,000 leads and you're reaching out to 10,000 people, it's basically 19 cents per lead, I think, trying to do my math, which is very cost effective. I'm just trying to figure out just the logistics of someone has such a small list, $1,000 for such a small list, it may or may not make sense.
And we're willing to, if you let us know what you have and what you're looking for, we can certainly tailor something, excuse me, to you for that particular client.
If let's say Don and I split an account, and would the cold caller be able to tell if they were calling for me or Donna?
They could, yeah, you could do that.
Okay, and I'm just thinking out loud, just considering, Derek, how many people do you have on your list?
I'm sorry.
About how many people do you have on your list that you market to? Oh, I think you're muted.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. About 3,000.
Okay. That's about what I have.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do direct mail though. So, but I am interested in the cold calling.
Yeah. And Kenny, how many people do you have on your list? About
around 5,000.
Okay. A little bit larger. So some of us don't have huge lists, but an opportunity that we have is to expand our list. I'd be willing to do that. If we have 3,000, then maybe, Derek, I would not Santa Rosa County, but it would be an opportunity to pick another market area easily.
Yeah, and we can, like I said, we can certainly work with. I know your focus is a little different, more focused, a lot more focused on when you're reaching out to someone, as opposed to just, hey, I'm going to hit this county and I'm going to reach out to everybody that has an acre or larger. I'm just going to reach out to them. So we can certainly tailor that and work with you to better utilize that. I would say too, the thing we do too is, like, we have a script that we use, and we have an in-house script that we use. A lot of our callers use, or our other land investors use. You can tweak that if you like. Some particular guy in the Southwest there, he wants anything and everything. So even if it's listed on the MLS, if they're interested in it, he wants to know about it, and he wants us to create a lead for him. I have another guy who comes from a house wholesaler background, and his script he's customized it quite a bit, and it's very to the point. If you're not interested in selling, he doesn't want that lead, and we can really tweak it. Do you want us to really filter it out? Take it if it's listed, you don't want it. If they're saying, hey, I want $1 million for my property, and the property's only worth 50,000, okay, they're probably not interested. Do you want us to take those out? So it just depends. What do you want? So we can tweak it. We can tweak the questions any way you want.
Okay, so I can have a part-time person 4 hours a day for $1,000 a month.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, and like, so we're working on, hopefully here in the next, let's say, week or so, we'll have it set up. So whenever and I don't know if this is something you guys are interested in, if this is useful to you, but when we send that lead over, we'll include market price, market value of that property. I think that's where people get maybe hung up, is they go to make an offer and they haven't properly comped that property. So their offer is way too low, or maybe in some cases it's way too high. But we'd like to, hopefully within the next week or so, we'll start including the actual market value, what we believe to be the market value of that property. So when you start doing your research on, hey, where am I going to offer this? You at least kind of have a starting point.
It's a good feature.
You only do land, Jeremy, not properties, not.
Housing, so we only, right now, we're only doing vacant land. If you have an interest in doing like wholesaling or something, we can certainly talk about that. But our focus, our background is in vacant land.
A question, maybe not quite related, but you indicated that you pre-screen the properties to make sure it's got road access and what have you. How do you do that with numbers?
Yeah, the way we do it is we use data tree, and we have somebody go through and look at every single property. And it's tedious, but we started that because of the cost of the mailing. We figured, hey, I'm sending out 10,000 pieces of mail, and always the ones, it seems at least 50% of the time, or maybe more than that, the ones I was getting back were ones that were not the best properties, didn't have access. So there was something wrong with it. There was whatever. So it was in a flood zone. So I'm like, why am I even mailing these people in the first place? Because I know, without even looking at it, I don't want that property that doesn't have access. I don't want a property that's
doing some due diligence up front.
Yeah, it takes time. It takes a lot of time to do, but we've figured out it makes sense for us. And when you're cold calling, it maybe makes a little less sense because we can do it a lot cheaper.
Right.
Like you indicated, I think we can, it's 14 cents a lead. I guess the only thing there is we'll hit that lead multiple times, right? So a mail, you're sending something, it might cost you 60, 70, 80 cents to send it to them. That's a one-time contact, right? And they may never get it. They might get it and like it, but it's not quite what they're asking for. We'll keep calling, right? It's 14 cents, but we'll call them multiple times. So maybe it makes a little bit less sense when you're cold calling because it's a lot cheaper to contact and it's not necessary. You can
it's immediate.
Get it in your right.
So if someone wants to go ahead and get started with you, and I know you're on the road, if you can share your information, or you can maybe share it with Louise later, and so we can put it out to everyone, but we'd like to put some post in our group, or have you post in our group so people can explore further and see if it's something that makes sense for them.
Okay, yeah, I'll give her that information. But you can contact me directly, Jeremy at lotleads.io. Let's get a drink of water here.
Yeah, take a breather. Yeah, Louise, we'll go ahead, and if we can put that out tomorrow or Friday.
Yeah,
you can.
I think I have his email.
Yeah, just send me an email and let me know what you're looking to do, and we'll get it figured out, and we can get you going and get you set up. Once we figure out who you want to call, we can get that loaded into our system and start calling pretty quickly.
Jeremy, can you provide a CRM?
Yeah, I can. You use a CRM currently?
I use REI Pro, and it's got a CRM, but I was thinking it'd be easier if it's something you guys already use.
If you have something that you use already, typically most systems, I'm not familiar with that one particularly, but usually there's a place where you can create like a web intake form, lead form or something like that. And then you'll provide a link to us. So what we'll do, open the link, and then we'll fill out the form, and it'll go right into your CRM. If you don't have that feature, let us know. We'll work something else out for you. But you probably have something like that, I would think.
Michael, are you using PropStream for your CRM?
We use Pebble.
Okay, and I've looked at all your stuff, so the Pebble I was familiar with. It's just another cost per month. I just didn't know.
I try to keep costs down, not to get too much off track. And actually met Jesse Kwong in person last weekend. Right. I suggest people keep their eye on their costs. Pebble, not to get off track, but I think it's $160 a month, or about $2,000 a year.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Jeremy. It's been very informative, buddy.
Yeah, no problem. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, or any questions that you might have. If I missed something, or you want some more in-depth response about something, feel free to reach out to me at the email address, and I'll be happy to just answer any additional questions you have, or you can always ask Michael, or however you want to do it, and I'm happy to answer more questions.
What are the calling hours?
So we call typically between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Eastern time.
Okay.
When we're calling. There's a lot of regulation around when you can call, when you can't call. They've pretty much the same between all the states, but for the most part, it's the same. So we stick to that, and that doesn't make people too mad. We also keep track of if we're calling the West Coast and it's real early in the morning, we'll delay that before we start calling.
Yeah.
So we do keep track of that.
Yeah, I believe the hours are regulated. I've done cold calling before and used cold callers, and I was doing 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon, and we definitely got deals. But I think it's time for us to go ahead and venture back in.
Yeah. Well, I think you'll get a lot. You'll get a lot of leads for sure. Not all of them will be people that are ready to sell at the price you want to pay, but you'll get the leads. The one thing we practice in our land business, and I tell other people we work with, other investors, is just because you can't get it at that price that you want to pay doesn't mean you shouldn't keep maybe working that deal. Maybe lock it up for, maybe you're willing to pay $50,000 for a piece of property, but they want 65. Get under contract for 65, and you can wholesale it to somebody else. You can maybe find another. There's lots of people who are looking for deals. They want to pay for the land. They don't want to find the deal, but they'll fund the deal. You can do that, or and something else that we recently started doing is, what we'll do is, for deals that we have gotten, that we've talked to somebody and we're right there, we just can't make it work, they want close to retail, we started working with a realtor where we'll actually give the lead to the realtor and get a cut of the commission. We'll get a fee if that's listed and sold. So there's lots of other avenues for working that lead and potentially profiting from it.
Yeah, we get some of our turn downs, we give them to our realtor, and that's just worth the relationship. We work together.
Yep, absolutely. That's another way to do it too. You keep them happy, then they'll be ready to, anytime you have a question and you need anything, they'll be ready to jump up and help you out.
Jeremy, great information. I really appreciate it. And I know you probably put in 500 miles today, and you're probably on the road again tomorrow.
2 days we'll be on the road again, but yeah, we're going to be busy for sure.
Very good. We'll get with Louise. We'll share the information. This will be in our library, so people that are here, great, and people that weren't will have an opportunity to view it as well.
Okay.
Jeremy, would you consider taking on houses lead?
Yeah, potentially. So when we bring on our cold callers, one of the requirements we have is that they have a real estate background. And actually, most of them are coming from like wholesaling background, calling on wholesaling or real estate housing in general. I actually don't think any of them have come from land, because that's more of a niche market there. So yeah, I would certainly, if you want to email me, jeremy@lotleads.io, and we can chat about that if you'd like. But yeah, it's the same thing. We're calling the same, we're doing the same process, just a different script and a different set of questions that we're asking. So certainly we're happy to talk about that.
I think if you use the word property, you get both. Land is the property, so it's a house. Yeah.
If you look in the chat, Louise had put Jeremy's contact information there as well.
So Jeremy, how you doing? This is Malik. Quick question.
Good, how you doing?
When it comes to the cold call, I'm in one market in one state, and then my son's in another.
Yep.
So his list is, I think, a little bit smaller than mine. I think he's roughly around like 800.
Okay.
And then mine's a little over 1,000. What would that look like cost-wise?
Like I indicated before, we could do a part-time caller for right around 1,000 a month. And if you wanted to email me, we could certainly discuss that more.
Okay.
But I think we could certainly work something out for sure.
Yeah, either that or Malik, you could always expand your list.
Okay.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, it sounds like I know a little bit of what Michael's approach. I don't know it fully, but I know it's very targeted. But at the end of the day, it still is a numbers game. So the more leads you have, the more offers you make, the more likely you are to get a yes from somebody and purchase the property at a great value. So if you have that capacity and you're in that position that you want to bring in those leads to make those offers, and you're comfortable going into these other markets, yeah, I would say you might be better off maybe expanding that a little bit, just so you can bring in more leads, make more offers.
Yeah, it wouldn't add that much more cost to target an audience that's double the size. Gia, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Michael?
Good. I think you may have just joined us, but Jeremy has talked about his cold calling service. It sounds incredible, but I just let you know that this session will be in the library tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Very good. Anybody else, or Jeremy, anything else you want to add?
I think we pretty much covered it. I was trying to make some notes here before we started, but I think that pretty much covers it. Certainly, like I said, if anyone has any questions that once we get off, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to, even if it's not about cold calling, if it's something else I said or something, and you have a question about something else, I'm happy to answer those questions too.
Yeah.
Feel free to reach out to me either way.
You've been extremely generous with your time. I know you're on the road. Have a happy 4th of July. Greatly appreciate it and look forward to working with you.
You too. I appreciate you having me on, Michael. It's been very kind of you, and it was great meeting all of you guys, and you guys have a great 4th of July.
All right. Have safe travels.
All right. You guys too.
Thank you.
All right, take it easy.
Thank you.
We do have a few questions. John had a question. Bear with me. I
I
believe.
also have a question too, if you have time, Mike.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Either Mike and Derek, since you guys are in the Pensacola, I know from Luis that Destin is in the Okaloosa County.
That's correct.
And what about Fort Walton, Derek and Mike? Is that
Okaloosa
same
also.
county too? Pardon, sir?
Okaloosa also.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I just want to get a piece of land there.
It's a pretty
Yeah,
big county.
He was looking for a piece of land in Destin.
Cheap land.
They know cheap land in Destin.
Those words don't go together.
They don't go together. Huh?
Okaloosa County has got the world's largest Air Force base, so it's a big county, a lot of land, but a lot of land you can't get. It's owned by the government.
Okay. I'm going to go down there toward the end of the month, and before that, I'm going to do some research there and do some marketing. When I go down there, I'll let you, Derek and Michael, know. So maybe I'll say hello.
I'd be glad to help you. I'm very familiar with it. And even Miramar Beach is right outside of Destin, and it gets over in Walton County. And
Walton.
it's still on the water.
So there's a Walton County too?
Yes.
Okay. But Port Walton is Okaloosa County.
That's correct.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah.
We're in Florida.
Yeah. And then Santa Rosa Beach, I think, is right there at Miramar Beach.
If you make it down to Destin, then hopefully we can meet for lunch or something.
Yeah. Thank you. That's very kind of
Very
you
good.
guys. Yeah.
I think Jeremy had some very valuable information. At least it's a resource for us, whether you decide that it makes sense for you or not. It's good to know which tools are out there and what's available. We've used cold calling before. We've had success with it. We just haven't done it for a while.
They might offer that credit score. Is there anything else we can do to maximize the use of that credit score, Mike, to get what we want? Can we target it out a little bit more with the credit score? What can credit score do for us looking for property owner, or landowner?
Yeah, I go ahead and take all of my leads. I put them into Ver, and I think we can get up to hundreds of fields. I don't need hundreds of fields, but the main thing I look at, because I want to do certain campaigns, I can do age, gender, marital status, how long they've owned it, how many credit cards they have, credit scores, annual income, net worth, emails, phone numbers, and it's not economical to sign up with them, but it's economical if you want to run 1,000 leads through it, because you may need to skip trace them anyway. But after I run my leads through it, I'll get it's not a FICO score, it's a credit rating, but it's basically from 500 to 850, just like a FICO score.
Okay.
But if we had one teammate, she had 4,000 leads. I took her 4,000 leads and I ran them through Versium, and we narrowed her list from 4,000 to 1,000, and she was going to mail to 4,000 people. It was going to cost $2,800. And in 1 hour, we took her mail cost from $2,800 down to $700 and saved her $2,100. But we sorted the list by lowest credit scores. It doesn't mean that someone with an 850 credit score is not going to sell. It just means the people that have a 550 credit score probably have more demand for money.
That's true. I got you.
So it's another tool. If I skip trace them in PropStream, it's 10 to 15 cents a record. I skip trace them in Versium. It's more affordable, and I get a lot more information.
Okay.
Versium license is what, 5,000 or 6,000 a year or something?
The minimum license is the last time I signed up was about 5 months ago. It was $3,600
And that's for a year?
for a year. So at the end of the year, if you don't use them, you lose them.
Yeah.
So that's why I wasn't going to use the amount of leads that I bought for $3,600. That's why we made bite-sized pieces available for you guys. I don't want to be in the data business, but it's just a resource that's available.
Hey, Mike, I reached back out to county, but that list, they only have it in the PDF. They don't have it in the CSV file.
The county?
Yeah, because the lady was nice, but she said they didn't have the like delinquent. So I was just like, okay. Because when we pulled it and the list was so big via PDF, and you said it wouldn't probably be worth the hassle. So I was thinking maybe I might have to look for another county or something. Or
You can pull a list. It doesn't necessarily have to come from the county, but it depending on what list that is.
Right.
But and I'm not an expert at ChatGPT, but I don't know if you could put a PDF in there and ask ChatGPT to convert it to a CSV. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
I think that is true.
We have a teammate, very successful. He started with us about 2 weeks ago, and he's an expert at ChatGPT. And so he showed me a few things he could do. So I asked him if our teammate would be one of our guest speakers. And I believe that he will do that.
Oh,
And
that would be fun.
yeah, so we could do a session on ChatGPT instead of me not doing a great job at it, have someone that is really proficient at it.
Yeah.
Young guy, very proficient, very tech savvy. So I talked to him about being one of our guests and our teammate at the same time. And I believe he'll do that for us.
Cool. That's
yeah,
great.
that'd be nice.
So I'll see. We do our teaching sessions typically on the first and third Wednesdays. The third Wednesday this month, I believe, is the 17th. So I'll see if he might be available to do that.
That'd be fun.
That'd be awesome. That would really be cool.
Yeah, I think that'd be great for everybody. He's a different generation than I am, but I would really value the resource and his knowledge.
Cool.
Now, is ChatGPT, is that a cost or is that a free?
They have two versions. They have a free version, and the other one's $20 a month for the deluxe. Jesse Kwong that has Pebble also has it. And sometimes people have challenges with spreadsheets. And I was talking to Jesse how we can pull up a delinquent tax spreadsheet and we can pull up a vacant land spreadsheet. He says, just put it into ChatGPT and tell it to merge them all.
Wow.
And he says it's just like that. So Jesse's very good at ChatGPT and all the technology.
How are you spelling that, Michael?
Chat?
Yeah.
Louise?
CH.
Yeah, let me put it on the chat.
GPT,
Okay.
CHT, GPT.
Yeah, Louise will put it in there, but I
Okay.
played around with it and it's a great tool. I just haven't spent 20 or 30 hours to get through that learning curve. And so I think it'd be much easier for someone just to show us what they do.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Always better. Yeah, that's great.
Because I know some of us have struggled with spreadsheets. And if I tried to figure out how to merge the two spreadsheets, it would have taken me 40 hours and I wouldn't be happy. So this may be a tool that can assist with that. We'll see if Jay might be available on the 17th, and that would be a great topic for all of us.
Quick question on probate. I know you've started to do some of that. Maybe others have done it as well. I dabbled in it a few years ago and got overwhelmed by going to the county or the city or whoever. It was in California anyway. It was like I was pulling teeth out of a hen or whatever that saying is, just to get the data. Are you using a service for that, or are you just knowing to look in the paper?
There are services that do it that will pull those for you. With the Scambia County, fairly easy. I can go in there and pull a list, just all the vacant land and 25,000 records. And if in the owner's description it says EST, estate, I know that's a property where the owner that's on title is deceased, and it's very likely that it will need to go through probate. So I'll see that the property's in the name of EST, but then I look at the mailing address, and on the mailing address, the letter goes to, or the tax bill goes to, it says CO. in care of. So the
Right.
person on title is deceased. The mail's likely going to an heir. And so what we do a mailing to all this in care ofs and then have that conversation with them. And what part of that conversation is, including with Al Nicoletti, the probate attorney in Florida, the people that are getting the tax bill don't want to pay $3,500 for probate. I don't want to pay $3,500 for probate, but I can get the contract signed, the agreement signed, send it to Al Nicoletti. He'll handle the probate, and his probate fees come out of the sale of the property.
Yeah, gotcha. All right.
So that way, the ones the heirs didn't want to pay, and I'm not putting up $3,500 a month, and then they flake out. So Al Nicoletti was a solution for that problem. So we can build a list that fits that criteria. We can engage with them, and Al Nicoletti is a solution for that.
Okay.
So I'll only do the Florida one.
Just Florida. But if you go in the library and you'll see Al Nicoletti, probate attorney there, that would be a good session to review. And then it would be a matter of if you're doing California or wherever, is finding a counterpart, and he may know of one.
Okay.
And I think on YouTube, I think he has the Al Nicoletti show. You can just see some of his additional content. So I know in the chat, and I want to get back to it, John had a question, and bear with me. He was interested in finding out what is the biggest challenge everyone's having. Yeah, what's everyone's biggest obstacle? So if anyone wants to go ahead and chime in on that, it could be finding buyers.
That's my issue. Finding serious buyers.
Yeah, finding buyers.
Hey,
What
Michael,
type of-
that's been one of my biggest issues as well, finding serious buyers.
Is this for infill lots or what is that?
For infill lots.
And you're not talking to realtors?
I've reached out to realtors. I've reached out to the buyers who have recently purchased the land in the area, as well as realtors who have pending sales. I've reached out to neighbors. It's just, for some reason, it's been a tough lot to sell. And I know it's really.
Yeah, sometimes it is a challenge. Sometimes it's price. I would see if there's a National Association of Home Builders in your market area. And where I am, the National Association of Home Builders, and then see if they have a local chapter. The local chapter where I am has 91 home builders that build in the county that I work. And so I've worked with about 10 of them, not 91, but that's a resource for you. Some properties, if we own it, I've got one right now listed with the realtor. The other one right now we've got on Facebook Marketplace. The realtor works great. Facebook Marketplace looks great. So when you pick a market, one of the first suggestion is join all the real estate related groups in that market. And then we go ahead and we boost the ad. So we've got one in there now. It's in 20 groups. We boost the ad. We pay up to $100 to boost the ad. And I typically get about 5 responses a day for people that are interested in that. I go into PropStream and I'll put in my zip code. I'll say, show me the vacant land similar to mine that sold within the last 2 years, and say it's 100 properties. And then out of that 100, I go back into PropStream and it says minimum number of properties owned. And I put minimum number owned 5. So it takes that list of 100 down to about 40 or 50. So now those 40 or 50 people are investors that have bought similar vacant land in my zip code within the last 2 years, and you can very quickly market to them. Neighbor letters, those are some of the techniques that we use.
I think I have an aha moment with the cash buyer list, right? So I've been working with this wholesaler for several property already. So whenever I have a property that I need to sell, if I can't sell it within my contacts that I have, I just let him have at it, because his database, he's a wholesaler, he has more buyer in his database. I just let him say, hey, this is what I'm looking for now. See what you can do with your buyer. And
great technique. And then the other thing that we do is I just start lowering the price. So we just listed one for $21,900, didn't sell. We just lowered it to $19,900. If it doesn't sell, I'll lower it to $17,900. We bought it for $8,000. So there's still plenty of room in there. The other one we have for 18,000, we have it listed for 38. And we just lowered it on Facebook Marketplace. I don't know if we had done that yet today, but it's going to 32.9 and just keep moving it until it sells. So sometimes it's a challenge to find the buyers, and sometimes it's just price.
Is it close to the beach, Mike?
No, they're not beach type neighborhoods. No.
I thought I asked.
Oh yeah, we could focus on that type of product if you want. Very easy to build a list and focus on the type of product you're looking for and just do some marketing.
I'm pretty sure we'll come up with a solution.
Let me know when you're coming, and
I will.
meet over by Destin or wherever. It's about an hour from where I am.
Is that right? Good deal. Thank you.
All right. Anyway, any other questions? Everyone have a good, safe 4th of July.